So, it's my first time running a Dungeons and Dragons summer camp. I have a group of six about 10-year-old kids who are playing, and everything has gone really well. We're up at the final session, and the kids' characters are having to fight a big hill giant who has been dogging them the whole time. This is the final BBEG. We get down to two characters, Catkill, a Tabaxi rogue, and Olivia Galanadel, the haughty high elf cleric. Catkill makes a great sacrifice to draw the attention of the hill giant, but it costs him a critical hit from the giant's rocks. Catkill lies bleeding and does so for enough rounds that he is one death check away from dying or living. It comes to the turn of Olivia Galanadel. The parents are around watching this. We're a little after time, but that just adds to the drama. So, Olivia, or rather Olivia's player, you have already slain the hill giant. Your companions have emerged victorious, but you can either walk over and easily use a spare the dying cantrip to save Catkill's life, or what kind of loot does the hill giant have? Um, well, he's a dirty hill giant, and he was wearing like a loincloth, and his primary weapon was a great club that is a tree. There might be more. I choose to loot the body. And as the DM, I said, okay. Catkill, it's your turn. Roll a death save. Oh, that failed. Okay. Catkill's dead now. Was this right? Was I being too harsh? Did the death serve the narrative? When should we, as game masters, bend the rules to make a more satisfying narrative where maybe more people live? Is this using the dreaded plot armor? These are the questions I want to ask today, and I hope we can answer them a little bit. Now, it is worthwhile to ask for something like this, is the problem just me? Am I, as a DM, killing my player characters too much or too little? And I think this is not the case for me. My Pathfinder games regularly had death as a feature, and so did my light dabbling into past editions of Dungeons and Dragons. I've played Call of Cthulhu as a player and died several times. Ditto for Dungeon Crawl Classics. Games like Cult and Call of Cthulhu basically expect you to die, and it's just a matter of when. So I think it's important to establish that this is specifically a 5e problem, and that's why this is a D&D 5e video. 5e is notorious for having hard to kill PCs, and I think there's some good reasons for it, and I think it's time to hear the case for life and for death in 5e. Mm. Now that is a fine lemonade for a sweltering spring day. Let's see what we have here on this case. Your Honor, ladies, gentlemen, other pals, the rules simply support the case of life in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. The narrative leanings support the long stories. After all, you don't need your dead character to have personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. And have you ever noticed how front loaded character creation is? I think you could find it if you've ever seen a good multi class come into your game. Now, what else do we have? Oh, yes. Have you ever heard a little word called immersion, investment in the story, the long game? It is much harder to get that immersion when your player character keeps dying. Wouldn't it not be easier to make sure that you have a long lasting character for those long, wonderful stories that draw on? I think so. And
Let's not forget, we are in a realm of serial pop culture. They tend more towards these long form stories. It's the time for binging the Netflix season rather than sitting down at the theater for a one film that's not in a franchise. Now, we can debate whether or not that's a good thing, but it is part of the popular culture, and our games can reflect that popular culture. And finally, everybody knows that in real life, death can be a painful and too real thing. And approaching death callously in your Dungeons and Dragons game can be triggering, or, for those of you who prefer, just plain sad. I rest my case for life and yield my time.
Look, death can be freaking cool. When's the last time you were watching some piece of media, and I won't get into spoilers, but somebody dies? Doesn't that add a little extra meaning? Doesn't that make that character's journey up to that point mean something? What about the characters who have to move on from that? Give some kind of weight to their journey. I think so. You can put that in your D&D game too. Ugh. It's a necessary stake to all these combat encounters you're going to be having, okay? What's the point of pretending you have a deadly encounter, an epic big dragon, if it can't kill a dwarf every now and then, huh? It is often a crucial world building detail. You've got undeath, demons, angels, different planes, sometimes even constructs. I mean, where does all that metaphysical crap come from if you can't kill some NPCs and PCs every now and then? Plus, death is a go to theme for fantasy, horror, sci fi, and of course, mystery genres that may seep into your D&D game. And if it can happen to your NPCs and monsters, it can happen to your PCs and their pets too. It's only fair, and it is a game. Navigating death in a game or other piece of media can be an effective way to cope, reflect, or even in some way prepare for an in real life death. It's not a fun thing to think about, but it can help, okay? Finally, 5e and other games have ways to deal with death, making it another problem to solve rather than an end point. So stop viewing it as such and just kind of embrace it. Have a little more death. Kill somebody this week in your game, though. Also, I like lemonade. It's good for my throat. Well, those were some very interesting arguments and points from those two very different Jacksons. And how do we actually parse what is the right answer here? Well, like most things with D&D, and let's face it, most of my advice, it's going to depend on your exact players and your exact situation. But I think I can narrow it down to a few pieces of advice using my true sight model introduced in the Making Magical Moments video. In real life, in the metagame, and in the game. In real life, you should set the expectation for life or death at session 0. Should they expect deadly encounters, or should they expect a gentle time where the story is more about how their lives are affected rather than are they going to lose them? Don't forget to check in on this from time to time to see how things are going. Maybe the opinions of your party will change, and maybe you will reach a point where everyone's had a satisfying life and it's time to introduce some tragedy into the game. On the metagame level, let's keep in mind words like deadly, threatening, or wounding when you're prepping an encounter. I don't believe very much in encounter balance. That's another video, but using keywords like this can really gear your encounter towards what you're trying to do. Is a villain trying specifically to kill a party member, maybe even one specific party member? Are you going for a total party kill as an adversarial DM and you want to really push your players to the limit on the game aspect to see how far they can go with their tactics? There's nothing wrong with that as long as everyone's okay with it. And in general, there's no wrong answer to a deadly or a non threatening encounter as long as you are intentional with your choice and follow through. And on the game and story aspect, make the death or survival, whichever, meaningful. Meaning will vary. Crowdsource your storytelling, ask your players what is meaningful to them, and if you're really good, you can read the room, you can fall back on what you learned in session 0, and now you'll know what will be meaningful for their characters, whether it is a continuation or an end. I want to wrap things up with a story of one of my last D&D summer camps. I had a group of 5 kids that had played with me before. They really knew their stuff, and we had decided to play in Theros, which is a world based on Greek mythology. Now, they had had a mission to go slay a Medusa that had allegedly caused some turmoil. Turns out that the Medusa was being framed by the evil king who shows up at the end of the Medusa dungeon to see the Medusa slain and all of the heroes on their last hit points from this effort. The evil king laughs and he says, "This is the end of your tale unless you choose to follow me. I have seen your worth and you will be of great value to me as my chosen champions." The choice was easy for each kid. They knew what was laid out before them. You can survive, but you will be the villain, or you can die a hero. They all chose for their characters an epic death. This worked because of the setting we had chose in Theros. It is very much a classical tragedy. And it worked because most of them were coming back next week for the next round of summer camp where they could play the relatives, the descendants, the apostles of the warriors that had died. They are now searching for the death. They can uncover the truth behind the good Medusa and the evil king and avenge the heroes that died. And that is how you can create meaning out of life and death in your D&D game. Go forth and play your best game and please have a nat 20 day. Bye bye.